Hey friends, so we are back for another episode of Catherine's Quarters, and I am so excited to talk about the good things that are coming out of 2020 because there have been very few. First, of course, we're going to talk about the NBA playoffs set, matchups set, everything is kicked off. It's going to be so great. I'm so excited. Just 5 months ago, they had their first coronavirus case, and now we're here. We have games, and I'm so happy. Of course, we're going to touch on the NFL because there's a lot of news coming out of there. And for our pop culture segment today, we have a segment called Two Things Can Be True. It's going to be great. We're going to talk about Kamala Harris. We're going to talk about Kanye West. It's going to be fantastic. So let's get right down to it. Everything is all good in the bubble, guys. You know we have to talk about the NBA first. Like I said, just 5 months ago, they had their first coronavirus case, and now the playoffs are about to start. So let's start off with the Western Conference. Of course, you have the number 1 seeded Lakers who are going to play the very, very hot Trailblazers. Now, Portland is not picked to do anything super huge in the bubble, but I mean, they're definitely going to give the Lakers a run for their money. Let's be clear, Damian Lillard is a superstar, okay? A superstar, despite what you might hear for some media members, a superstar. And then of course he's got CJ McCollum. Gary Trent Jr. has been playing well. Nurkic came out and played a huge game in honor of his grandmother who had passed away from COVID over the weekend on the same day that they had to go and play their play-in game against the Grizzlies. So I mean, that's a red hot Blazers team. It's gonna be a good series, and I don't think that they're gonna get swept. I do think that the Lakers will win that one though. The Clippers, who will play the Dallas Mavericks, that's definitely going to be a great matchup. The Clippers, they got a whole bunch of firepower. They are easily the second favorite out of the West. Houston will play Oklahoma City. And then you have Denver Nuggets, Utah Jazz. Everybody's favoring the Nuggets naturally. We'll see though, because the Utah Jazz is not going to lay down. Let's talk about the Eastern Conference matchups now. So of course, you got to start with the Milwaukee Bucks, who will play the Orlando Magic, the Raptors versus the Brooklyn Nets. We have the Celtics versus the Sixers, and we have Miami Heat and the Indiana Pacers. All of these matchups are actually really, really good. We're gonna be so spoiled coming out of this quarantine with all of these back-to-back games on top of games on top of games. But either way, we're just happy to have basketball back, right guys? And other really cool news out of the NBA is that they teamed up with Yale and the NBA Players Association, and the FDA just pushed through an approval for a saliva-based test, right? And they're calling it Saliva Direct. And this could really help increase the amount of testing that can get done. They've tried it on the NBA players and the coaches and all of the personnel that were going down to the Orlando bubble, and you get your test results faster, and it's a much cheaper way. The NBA is just getting it done in 2020. In basketball adjacent news, LeBron James and his nonprofit organization More Than a Vote are partnering with the Los Angeles Dodgers to use the Dodgers Stadium as a polling site for this upcoming election. I said in my last vlog that State Farm Arena in Atlanta, the Atlanta Hawks were partnering with them to, try and figure out how they could utilize that building as a polling site. And so now the LA Dodgers and LeBron James are getting together to partner and make that happen in LA, which is it's gonna take a lot of burden off of the communities to be able to go somewhere where it's COVID friendly, to be able to vote and still be able to keep their safe social distance. So I mean, more power to LeBron and all that he's bringing to LA. A lot of other cities should see how they can implement this same thing with arenas and stadiums that aren't being utilized during this time of coronavirus. You can convert these stadiums and arenas into polling sites and still have people be able to, work and do a job. It's a win-win. All right, guys, so we have to talk about football season, and a couple of weeks ago I was really stressed, and I really just I thought they were just gonna cancel the NFL season altogether. And that's still a possibility, but there's a little more promise, right? College football is a foregone conclusion. The Big Ten has already canceled their season, the Pac-12 has already canceled their seasons. So, I mean, a lot of conferences are going to end up following suit. Here's the thing, college football needs a whole other just full-on vlog all of its own. Let's talk about some NFL, right? Because there's tons of news coming out of the NFL. The players were able to opt out before August 6th, right? And so they could say, I don't want to play this season. Their contract would get moved to next season. And if they were considered high risk, then they would be able to get a $350,000 stipend from the NFL, right? And that would be taken out of their salary for next year. If they're not considered high risk, they get $150,000 stipend from the NFL to be deducted from their salary come 2021. There's about 67 players who decided to opt out. of the season. The New England Patriots are the team that have the most players who decided to opt out with 8. You have to respect these guys for understanding that there's a level of risk and not wanting to put their families, in harm's way. Referees were also allowed to opt out, and they would get a $30,000 stipend, but they would be guaranteed to have their job next season. So, at least the NFL is giving a little bit of something. So the game is going to look a little bit different this year, but at least there's going to be a game to look at, right? But there's been good news on the testing front because a lot of training camps has started. They implemented daily testing, and according to reports, they've had less than 1% or right around 1% of a positivity rate. That's a really, really surprisingly low infection rate, and that's a really, really surprisingly low percentage. So that's really promising, and the league has said that they are going to continue daily testing until September 5th. Hopefully by then, whatever this saliva-based test that they have, Yale and the NBA have come up with will be able to be utilized, and that way there will be faster results and just better all around. So hopefully the NFL can keep those coronavirus cases down and also the positivity rate down. That would be the most ideal, and that's the way that they can finish their entire season. When they start traveling and doing that, that's when we'll have to really take a look at the numbers and see what's working, what's not. But here's to hoping that we have an entire football season. So the Washington football team hired Jason Wright today. He is a former player. He's young. He's 38 years old, and he's black. He is going to be their new president, and if Dan Snyder has any sense in his head after this horrible summer that he has had, I mean, between having to change the name and being pressured to change the name and still being pressured to, give the team up and sell the team to somebody else. And on top of that, Washington Post article that came out about, female employees alleging workplace discrimination and sexual harassment. Dan Snyder, if he has any brains and any smarts, will allow Jason Wright to literally revamp everything within the Redskins. Within the Washington football team organization, right? Like, they need a full revamp, and this is a really great way to get it done. So all that being said, the Washington football team is still a hot mess. They just had to release Darius Geis, who's one of their running backs. He was released because of domestic violence allegations. He actually turned himself into the Loudoun County Police. But it's like 3 felony counts of aggravated assault, and he strangled his girlfriend. It's insane. That's a situation we have to monitor, unfortunately, because we've seen guys in the league do worse and still be able to come back. With new management, a lot of times comes new culture, and they got a long way to go. But that Jason Wright hire is definitely a step in the right direction. I've seen a lot of negative commentary online about, oh, it's been 100 years and we shouldn't be rejoicing in the fact that he's the first black guy ever to be able to be president. While I agree that 100 years and he's the first black guy to ever be able to be at that level of an executive for a football team is ridiculous, but also we have to be excited about that win because it's still a win. So don't diminish the win. Be excited. Cheer that man on, period. You don't have to cheer for the Washington football team, but you can cheer for him to do well. So Joe Biden finally announced his running mate, Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is how you say her name. And that's why I say two things can be true, right? Because there were varying opinions about Kamala when he announced. So there was the side who's like, we have to be excited no matter what, who cares, blah, 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 because Kamala is who she is. She represents a very large part of this country that has been marginalized and just underappreciated since the inception of the country. So we can understand why people would be like, we don't care what she's done. We don't care about her past. She's in this spot now and she's going to do great things and we can hold her accountable then, right? And then there's another group of people who are just like, I don't like Kamala because of her past. And she used to be a prosecutor and she's been a part of a system that has, disproportionately negatively affected Black people. That's why I say two things can be true. Because she absolutely was a part of a system that to this day disproportionately negatively affects Black people, period. Which means we can be happy and celebrate the fact that she has ascended to this height that she's ascended to. It's incredible. Call a spade a spade. What she has done is amazing. What she is going to be able to do for this country will be amazing. But we can also hold her feet to the fire on things that she has done that she needs to rectify. Don't downplay the people who have concerns about Kamala Harris, because it's not as if they're invalid. But it also doesn't invalidate the incredible work that she has done to get to the point that she's at. To express the importance of getting out and voting in November, I cannot stress enough. We all need to make sure that we're taking the election seriously. Which brings me to my next point. Kanye West is not running for president, y'all. Just 2 weeks ago, that man was on Twitter ranting and raving and telling all of his family business to the entire world. Some conversations don't need to be for Twitter. Especially conversations that you've had with your wife about your children. That ain't right. And you want that man to lead this country? Don't even say it as a joke, because it's not funny. We thought 2016 was a joke. We thought that was funny. And now look at us. A mess. He needs help. He doesn't need to be president. He needs help. There's really people trying to get him on the ballot in certain states. And do you understand making jokes about it? It's cool to make jokes on Twitter. Like, everybody makes jokes on Twitter so that they can go viral and all that other ridiculousness. But in real life, you can't be out here talking about Kanye West 2020. No. This isn't supposed to be a political blog talking about Kanye West like he's about to be some saving grace. Kanye West is not going to save us. The current guy, you know what he's trying to do? He's saying that sports are more important and that colleges should be playing sports in the fall and that kids should be going back to school, but it's not safe for you to vote. So go ahead, tell me how much you really want him to be in there for another 4 years joking about Kanye West going to be a president. Stop it. But anyways, I'm not sticking to sports ever. Can't do it. And that rounds out our popular segment for today. Her name is Kamala. And don't vote for Kanye. All right, friends, that's it for this episode of Katherine's Quarters. Thank you so much for joining me. Make sure you hit the subscribe button below. And NBA playoffs, NFL's coming back. We don't have preseason, but there's training camp. There's already guys who are out for this season because of injuries. Make sure you follow me on Twitter because I will have all of the updates for you. Check you guys later.